The air was thick with tension. James sat at his worn-out desk, staring at the empty notepad in front of him. A man who once had dreams bigger than the sky now found himself trapped in the monotony of survival. His corporate job, which had once promised success, had turned into a cage. Every morning, he woke up to an alarm that felt like a death sentence. Every night, he collapsed into bed with a heart heavy with disappointment. James had spent years watching younger men rise to the ranks, men who lacked his experience, his wisdom, his struggle. Yet, they moved ahead while he remained stuck. The resentment festered in his soul, making him question everything. But what he didn't know, what none of us ever truly realize, is that life has a way of rearranging itself when we least expect it. And sometimes, God uses the most unexpected people to shift us into our true destiny. James had spent 15 years in the same company, dedicating countless hours to a dream that no longer felt like his own. Promotions were given to those who played the game, those who charmed their way through office politics. James was different. He believed in hard work, in integrity, in perseverance. But the world didn't seem to reward those values anymore. Then came the news that shattered his illusion of stability. A new manager was being appointed to lead the team. His name was Alex, just 27 years old, barely a decade into his career. James scoffed when he heard the announcement. What could a man so young possibly teach me? On Alex's first day, James watched him closely. He was charismatic, confident, and full of fresh ideas. The team gravitated towards him, eager to impress. But James kept his distance, arms crossed, eyes filled with quiet skepticism. Days turned into weeks, and tension grew. James found himself resisting every change Alex introduced. He dismissed the younger man's suggestions as naive, holding on to his belief that wisdom came with age, not ambition. Then came the conversation that changed everything. One evening, as James was packing up to leave, Alex approached him. "James, can I have a moment?" Reluctantly, James nodded. "I know you don't agree with how I do things," Alex started, his voice calm yet firm. "But I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. You're stuck. You've outgrown this place, but you're too afraid to move." James stiffened. "Afraid? I built my life here." "And that's the problem," Alex replied. "You're holding on to a life that's no longer meant for you. I wasn't sent here to replace you. I was sent here to push you." James's mind reeled. The words struck deep, piercing through years of resentment and fear. But the truth was undeniable. He had been stuck. And somehow, this young man had seen it before he could admit it to himself. That night, James couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, haunted by Alex's words. "You've outgrown this place." Had he? At 45, James had always assumed he was too old to start over. But maybe, just maybe, God was using someone younger to show him that life wasn't over. It was just beginning. James woke up with a strange mix of emotions. His mind was at war. One side clung to the comfort of familiarity, while the other whispered the unsettling truth. You were made for more. For years, he had poured his soul into a job that had given him nothing but exhaustion. He had watched others rise while he remained rooted, mistaking stability for success. But now, for the first time, he saw the cracks in his foundation. Alex's words wouldn't leave him alone. "You're holding on to a life that's no longer meant for you." James didn't want to admit it, but deep down he knew Alex was right. That morning, James walked into the office with a different mindset. He studied his co-workers, many of them younger, hungrier, willing to embrace change. For so long, he had been bitter about their success, but now he saw it differently. Maybe they weren't the problem. Maybe he had been resisting his own evolution. At lunch, he found himself sitting across from Alex. He still wasn't sure what had drawn him there, but something inside him knew that this conversation needed to happen. "You said something the other day," James started, his voice more curious than confrontational. "You said I've outgrown this place. What did you mean by that?" Alex leaned back, studying James before speaking. "You have too much potential to be here. You've been doing the same thing for years, expecting something to change. But deep down, you know you were meant for more. You've just been too afraid to take the leap." James let out a dry laugh. "And where exactly am I supposed to go?" I'm not young like you. I can't just restart my life. Alex smiled. That's where you're wrong. Age has nothing to do with it. Growth isn't about how young or old you are. It's about whether you're willing to step out of your comfort zone. Have you ever considered that God is trying to move you, but you're resisting? James felt a chill run down his spine. He had never thought of it that way. That night, he did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed. Not the rushed, half-hearted prayers he had muttered in times of crisis, but a real conversation with God. God, am I supposed to leave? Is this job holding me back? Am I holding myself back? The answer didn't come in words, but in a feeling, an overwhelming sense of peace mixed with an undeniable push. The next morning, James walked into work with newfound clarity. He wasn't going to quit immediately, but he was going to stop resisting change. He started listening more, learning from the younger employees instead of dismissing them. And the more he embraced change, the more he saw opportunities that had been in front of him all along. One evening, as he was leaving work, Alex caught up with him. I can see it in your eyes. You're starting to wake up. James nodded. I think I am. Alex grinned. Good, because I have an offer for you. James raised an eyebrow. An offer? Alex nodded. I'm working on something outside this company, a business venture. I need someone with your experience, someone who understands people, leadership, and real hard work. You'd have to leave this place, but I promise you, it'll be worth it. James's heart pounded. Everything in him screamed that this was the moment God had been preparing him for. But was he ready? Could he truly let go? James stood at a crossroads, his mind swirling with doubt and anticipation. Alex's offer was more than just a job opportunity. It was a calling. For years, James had prayed for a breakthrough, but when it finally arrived, it didn't come in the form he expected. It came through a man younger than him, a man he had once dismissed. For the next few days, James wrestled with his decision. The security of his corporate job held him like chains. He had bills to pay, responsibilities to uphold. But deep down, he knew, if he stayed, he would rot in the comfort of mediocrity. One evening, James met Alex at a small coffee shop. The tension in his chest tightened as he prepared to speak. I've spent my whole life believing that stability is success, James admitted. But the truth is, I've just been afraid of failing. Alex leaned forward, his expression serious. Fear is a prison, James. And God doesn't call us to stay in prisons. He calls us to move forward, even when we can't see the full picture. James took a deep breath. Tell me about this venture. What exactly are we building? A fire lit up in Alex's eyes. A consulting firm. We help businesses that are stuck, just like you were. We restructure their leadership, teach them how to embrace change, and show them the value of experience. He smiled. Your experience. James sat back, absorbing the weight of the moment. Everything he had been through, every struggle, every frustration, had been preparing him for this. That night, he made his decision. The next morning, James walked into the office with an unusual calmness. He typed his resignation letter, printed it, and walked straight to his boss's office. His manager looked up in surprise. James, what's this? My resignation. Silence filled the room. His boss leaned back, studying him. I didn't think you'd ever leave. James smiled. Neither did I. For the first time in years, he felt free, not because he had all the answers, but because he was finally moving in faith instead of fear. Months passed, and James stepped fully into his new role as a business consultant. The work was challenging, but it was fulfilling. He was no longer just a cog in a machine. He was creating, leading, and making an impact. One day, as he and Alex sat in their new office, Alex chuckled. You know what's funny? When I first got to your old job, I thought I was there to lead. But looking back, I think God sent me there to find you. James smiled, shaking his head. And here I was thinking you were just some kid trying to take my place. Alex grinned. God moves in unexpected ways. James nodded, looking out the window at the city below. That he does. And with that, he embraced the truth. Sometimes, God sends a younger man not to replace you, but to relocate you, to shift you into the purpose you were always meant for. And when that moment comes, the only question is, will you have the courage to move?